Good morning, everybody. Thank you to Plasticity for organizing this event, and thank you all for coming. You will hear me today speaking proudly about the values at Avery Dennison, at the achievements, at the solutions that we introduced to the market. But this is not a selling story, it's an invitation, and so therefore I'm very grateful that you're all here. We are part of a larger ecosystem. We don't have all these solutions, and we like to work together to progress and to further advance on our sustainability journey. So today I have the honor to tell you a little bit about how Avery Dennison is working on the sustainability efforts. But before I do that, I think I should make a brief introduction about Avery Dennison. I briefly stand still with the trends. It's a very dynamic environment, so the trends in the packaging industry. And then we'll focus on sustainability, our sustainability efforts, the cooperation that we're looking for in the supply chain, the guiding principles that help us in directing our efforts on supply chain, on sustainability improvements, and then in the end, how we aim to meet the requirements of our customers and the consumers. So let's start with a brief introduction about Avery Dennison. It's not the most well-known company in the world, but I'm pretty sure, high probability, that every one of you touches our product almost every day. The company was founded by Mr. Stan Avery, a gentleman with a very high curiosity, innovative character, entrepreneurial character, and he invented basically the pressure sensitive label, which later emerged as an entire industry. And so the pressure sensitive label was a way to merchandise objects. The company is originally from Los Angeles. In 1990, it was merged with a company in Boston, Dennison Corporation. And then today, it's one of the Fortune 500 companies, a global company. So the company is based in Los Angeles. It's a global company. It's active in more than 50 countries, more than 30,000 employees, about $7 billion turnover. And basically we are a company that is focused on material science and manufacturing of labeling and functional pressure-sensitive solutions. So what does that mean? That means label and graphic materials, which is approximately 75% of our turnover. Then secondly, it's retail branding and information systems, which is mostly labeling and tag solutions for the apparel industry, and also direct print and embellishments like sports jerseys. Most of the national teams that are currently competing in the Women's World Championship football are having direct print of our manufacturer. And then the third division of the company is industrial and healthcare materials. So it's tapes for construction, for automotive, or for healthcare applications. And then the fastest category that is represented in all of those three areas is in fact intelligent labels. So it's labels that provide the capability to give more transparency throughout the value chain, a higher inventory accuracy, and also there we see a huge potential for the future to further optimize sustainability of the value chain. So our sustainable competitive advantage has its origin in a couple of things. First of all, as an industry leader, we're operating in more than 180 sites. So to the problem that was referred to before, the lack of ability to transport plastics across different areas, this is a huge capability that we are not only able to serve large brands like Coca-Cola or Procter & Gamble or Heineken across the world with a similar quality and service, but also that we're able to use raw material at very many locations across the world. Now, secondly, it's our material science capabilities. We are backward integrated. We make our own adhesive. And then third is the innovation capabilities. We have about 300 scientists, R&D experts around the world, more or less evenly spread between the Americas, Europe, and Asia. And then last but not least, it's the operational and commercial capabilities. So we can leverage scale, for example, also in the procurement. We are one of the largest buyers of paper in the world, and so we were instrumental, if not leading, to drive to FSC standard, a sustainable forestry practices standard in the paper industry. We have a consistent quality and service that we can offer around the world. And then we have the most innovative and broadest product portfolio. And that portfolio is aimed at many different segments, at logistics, at food, at beverages, at home and personal care like shampoos or cleaning detergents, beer, wine and spirits, pharma, durables, removables and reclosures, and many more specialized applications. So let's go then, after the introduction, to the trends in the packaging industry. It's a very dynamic environment. I'd like to focus on 5 of the key trends. First one is the growth of e-commerce, which perhaps longer term might have an impact on the importance of shelf appeal, but definitely has a short-term impact already, because many of us order things online, so that means that a package gets delivered to your home with a sticker with the address on it, and probably 1 or 2 additional stickers in it, in case you do not like the contents and you have to send it back. The second piece is a change of consumer preferences. And you could think of, for example, that you don't like to carry those big bottles, so you see more concentrated substances in smaller packages. You see premiumization. Don't know how you're selecting your wine, but I have to admit that for me the label is a pretty important one when I stand in front of the shelf with all the wines. And so it's not only the design of the label, but it can also be the material of the label. And then it's also more information. I think people like to have more information about the authenticity of the contents, the origin of the contents, to which extent it is authentic and not anti-counterfeited, etc. Then we need to have a fit-for-purpose product, because there's increased pressure. You heard before the speaker about price. So price is important, and so we are aiming to have fit-for-purpose applications. And by the way, I just mentioned the FSC pulp or the FSC paper. We offered that to the market on a price parity. So if you then can have either a non-certified paper, or you can have a paper of which you know that it's made with sustainable forestry practices, there's a clear incentive to buy the one. Then the 2 most important trends are probably the increase of sustainability, for which we're all together here, and the other one is the digitization or the Internet of Things, which is also an important element. So how are we coping with these trends? First of all, we're investing heavily in innovation. We have very agile processes in order to expand our product portfolio and our services to the requirements of the customers and to the requirements of the broader communities. We are aiming to create a vision on sustainability, and I will elaborate a little bit later on that further. And then, like I said before, we are very open to collaborate in the value chain. We do not have all the solutions, although we're proud on what we can offer, and so we are looking for collaboration with partners throughout the value chain. So if we then speak about sustainability, there's many different definitions about sustainability, but I think for us, sustainability is the area where social, economic, and environmental considerations all come together. So on the centerpiece of the green area that you see in front of us, I think that is really the sustainable area. And so if you talk then about plastics, what does that mean, and what are the drivers for that? There's 3. First of all, there's legislation, and particularly if we speak about Europe, I think that we see legislation evolving faster than we have seen many cases before. Was already mentioned before the European strategy for the circular economy, also the directive for the single-use plastics, the requirements to have recycled contents and recyclability of the packaging into the future. So very important piece. The second one is not all driven by legislation. It's also, as already referred, companies like Coca-Cola, like Procter & Gamble, like Unilever, Nestle, and I can mention many others. They all have pledges, key milestones, objectives to have less packaging per unit of contents, to have more recycled contents in their packaging, to have more recyclability, and they have expressed key milestones for these objectives for the near future. And both of those, the legislation as well as those pledges, in the end are of course driven by the change in consumer awareness and the consumer requirements. Yeah, so you cannot open a magazine or watch on internet or the television and you see plastics in rivers where you can hardly see the water anymore, or beaches and you get tears in your eyes. And so the consumers have an increased awareness and increased priority to have more care for sustainable products. So what does that mean? It does not mean that plastics is bad. And that is an important distinction to make. Plastics has an important role, and probably plastics has a role also to avoid waste. It has a function to protect the contents. It has a function to promote, to transport, to provide usage information, and also information about the authenticity, to make sure that you have the real product and not a fake product, or to have information about the ingredients that were made and where they are coming from. And also an important one is that plastic packaging should enable recycling and decrease the environmental impact. And so plastics has a function, but is not the purpose then afterwards to throw the plastic on the beach, in the forest, or in the sea. Yeah, so that is the challenge. The challenge is to make conscious use of plastics, to see whether we can use less plastics, and then to make sure that we recycle the plastics packaging. So and the label has an important role. I mean, you see in the horizontal center of this slide the position of Avery Dennison and our colleagues in the industry as a pressure-sensitive label manufacturer. So our function is that we laminate the construction of a face material, either paper or plastics material, the adhesive, and then a liner. And that can be a wide variety. There's more than 4,000 SKUs. I never knew about that. I thought a sticker was a sticker until I worked at Avery Dennison. But that is what we do. We sell it then to converters, to label printers that print and cut the labels to the required size. They sell it again to the Heinekens, the Coca-Colas, the Procter & Gambles, etc. And then it gets to the consumer. But it's not only about that value chain, it's also of course about the suppliers, and we can have certain demands, particularly as an industry leader, to our suppliers. But it's also the collaboration at the industry level. So you see on top industry associations like CFlex for flexible packaging, like FINAT, which is the overcoupling organization for labeling in Europe. And like Plastics Recyclers Europe, and also beyond that, NGOs, like for example the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, of which we are a member, World Wildlife Fund, and also we are recognized as a Barron's 100 company, which is one of the indexes to recognize companies with sustainable practices. So in our sustainability efforts, the natural step is already for 25 years there, and we take their principles, those 4 principles, as our guidance in order to determine our sustainability policies. So basically, in a nutshell, we want to be cautious with raw materials. We want to have to minimize our impact on the environment, and we want to respect the needs and requirements of the people that work for us, that consume our products, or that are living in the communities in which we operate. And so we've determined, like many of the consumer companies that I mentioned before, environmental goals, sustainability goals for 2025, ambitious goals. And you see some of them, you see them all here. I will mention some of them. So sustainable products and solutions, I will list 2 examples a little bit later. Then on the sourcing, the paper, I mentioned the sustainable forestry practices, but also on films and chemicals. Make sure that we do not use any hazardous materials or that we maximize the recycled contents. Reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So we have a target to reduce in absolute terms by 3% every year. So that means even if you grow 5%, you still in absolute terms have to reduce 3%. And we're ahead of track over the last 5 years, ahead of the plan. Waste is of course an important one at our own operations, as well as say further down in the value chain, and we cannot solve that problem by ourselves. We really need to collaborate with partners to achieve that. On people means diversity, have an inclusive culture in the company and a diverse workforce. Means to have an engaged workforce. Means also to have a high standard of safety for the people that work with us. And then the last one is to be transparent. So we have, since a number of years already, a sustainability report, an annual sustainability report, in which we aim to be very transparent about where we're making progress and where we need to make more progress. And in October, it's planned to have the 2019 report published. And so then to the end, let me give 2 examples of sustainable products that we are offering to our customers and to the public. The first one is recycled contents. Recycled contents on plastics. As we speak about plastics, we will introduce this product at the Label Expo, which is the largest exhibition for our industry. It happens in September in Brussels, once every 2 years. And we will be the first one to introduce a recycled polyethylene with up to 30% post-consumer waste. We have this product already tested currently in the market, and we will launch this officially at Label Expo. Then the next one is a very important one, that is to enhance the recyclability of the bottles. So in order to help our customers, so that means the Coca-Colas, the Procter & Gamble's, to recycle their bottles, it's important that the label cannot have a negative impact on the yield. So the label should not avoid a high recyclability of the bottle. So that means for us that the label needs to be separable from the bottle. And so we have a product which is called our Clean Flake portfolio. That means that after the collection and after the sorting of the bottle can be processed, and after the grinding, the pieces of the adhesive and the pieces of the label will clearly separate from the pieces of the bottle itself. It has a higher density, and so the pieces of the adhesive and the label will sink, whereas the other pieces will float, and you can separate both streams in order to have a maximized recycling yield. Yeah, and I'd like to show you a video of that process. Now, I don't know whether I need to push a button for the video or whether you do that.
With world population growing to 8 billion people, natural resources have come to a limit. But the demand for plastics keeps rising, especially for PET bottles and thermoform containers. The good news, PET is 100% recyclable. However, standard PS and shrink labels limit recyclability. Leftovers from adhesive, ink and face stock contaminate the flakes and prevent reuse for food packaging. Avery Dennison has developed the Clean Flake portfolio, an innovative solution to allow clean recyclability. Clean Flake adhesive technology separates cleanly during the recycling process. It comes with clear and white label material tailored to PET bottles or thermoform containers and fits all current printing techniques. The unique water-based adhesive sticks to the container to the very end of its life cycle. But in the recycling process, the caustic wash breaks the cohesive bond, allowing the labels to separate cleanly. No residual adhesive remains on the flakes. No contamination. Avery Dennison Clean Flake enables true bottle-to-bottle recycling. 100% recyclability makes the difference on the shelf and helps the planet, as it saves precious natural resources and reduces greenhouse gas emissions.
Thank you. So, to close the presentation, sustainability is a clear focus for Avery Dennison. As an industry leader, we take our responsibility. The focus for the next period will be really on recycled contents, as well as recyclability. On recycled contents, we have a larger and larger range: recycled papers, recycled PET liner, recycled PE. Yesterday we saw the first samples of a recycled PP, so it goes on and on. And then we want to offer also products that enable recycling. So you saw our Clean Flake portfolio, which is currently available for PET bottles, which is mostly beverages. And we are aiming to expand that over the coming months to also a Clean Flake solution for HDPE bottles, which are mostly used for home and personal care, like shampoos. And again, I emphasize we want to collaborate with our partners in the value chain. So we are very happy with all of you being here. We look forward to the discussions today and tomorrow. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your attention.